Good morning. Welcome to the second Legislative Forum of 2026, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Ames and Story County, as well as KHOI-FM radio. This forum is being recorded for posting on YouTube and the League of Women Voters of Ames and Story County Facebook page. Today is Saturday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. I am Brenda Brink, a member of the League and moderator for today's forum. For those who may not know, the League of Women Voters is a political organization founded over 100 years ago. Although political, the League is committed to nonpartisanship. The League takes positions on issues but does not endorse or support any candidate's political campaign. It influences public policy through education and advocacy. It encourages informed voting through forums like this one, giving voters the opportunity to receive answers to their questions directly from candidates and legislators. The format for the forum includes first, opening statements from each legislator. After that, we move to questions from you, the audience. And lastly, closing statements if time allows. Audience questions will take priority over those closing remarks. Questions from the audience may be written on cards and read by me, or you may step to the mic. Okay, it is that mic over on the side. One reminder, we expect all exchanges today between legislators and constituents to be civil and respectful. Let's get started. Story County is served by 9 legislators. All 9 have been invited. Attending today are, to my left, Herman Kornbach, Iowa Senate District 25, then Beth Wessel-Crochelle, Iowa House District 49, and Dennis Guth, Iowa Senate District 28. Thank you for being here so much. We will begin with each of you introducing yourself, include a bit of background, the committees you serve on, and what you plan to work on this legislative session. Try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Notice Deb in the front row. She's our timer. She has very important messages to give you. We will begin with Herman Kornbach, and we will be taking turns throughout the whole thing. If I get off on whose turn it is, please correct me. All right, Herman, would you like to start then, please?
Well, thank you. Thank you to the League for hosting this forum as well as other forums. The League has expanded. It used to be the Ames League. It's now the League for Ames and Story County. So we will be having forums at a variety of different communities across the county. And I think that's just terrific. The more people we can get involved in local democracy, the better. I am a retired economics professor from Iowa State. I taught at Iowa State for 29 years, someplace north of 10,000 students. Before that, we lived in California. I taught at Southern Cal. Originally born in Minnesota, moved to Milwaukee when I was 9 years old, so Packers, not Vikings. We have lived in Ames now for 35 years. My district, District 25, includes almost all of Ames. The city of Ames has grown in population so much that the district has collapsed in around it. I used to have Madrid and Luther over in Boone County. I used to have a few more rural townships in Story County. I still have Grant Township, and I have been out and knocked on every farmhouse door this last fall, starting my re-election campaign. And that's what I intend to do. That's what I love doing, is listening to people, making contact with people, and trying my best to represent them. I can't please everybody, but you can at least try to listen to everybody. In the Senate, I serve on the Education Committee, where I am the ranking member. When my party was in the majority, I was the chair for 6 years, and the last 8 or 9 I have been the ranking member. The Ways and Means Committee, that's the tax writing committee. They think that an economist might know something about how to write taxes. I'm also on the Local Government Committee. I served on the Ames City Council for 7 years before being elected to the legislature, and I'm still a strong proponent for local control and strong local government. I serve on the Judiciary Committee. I serve on the Ag Committee. and I serve also on the Education Appropriation Subcommittee. So I do both the policy for education and try to figure out how to pay for it. I'm happy to take questions. Glad to see you all here.
Thank you. Beth Wessel-Crochel.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and happy Valentine's Day. This is our second forum, so it's always nice to get out and meet constituencies. I have not been to Roland for a very long time, but it's interesting to be up here again and see some of the services. My daughter used to swim in your pool when she was young. She'd come up here with friends. And then I think I was telling your mayor, my son brings his cat to the vet up here. So you have some you have some good resources, and we truly appreciate them. I serve on the Health and Human Services Committee, Policy Committee, which I serve as ranking member. I am also on the Judiciary, Public Safety, Ways and Means, and the Justice Systems Appropriations Committee. So I do a lot in work in health, aging, child welfare, and justice systems. I decided it would be a good time to, in introductory statements, to talk maybe a little bit about what my wishes are. My wishes don't necessarily come through in the legislative session, but I think things that I want and wish we could be working on. And one of those is to raise the minimum wage. We haven't done that for many years, and it's $7.25, and we know that goes absolutely nowhere. We absolutely should be addressing the issue of our rising cancer rates, including water quality. And I have a friend. And we need to strengthen our public schools instead of incessantly going after them with new rules and laws, and we need to fully fund them. So, and finally, I want to work towards an affordable, accessible healthcare system for all, and that includes women and reproductive healthcare, which we are attacking. We attacked last week, and we will be attacking again this week. So those are my wishes. It's not necessarily coming true. We are now, this last week, we were attacking local government's rights to make civil rights protections for everyone, especially trans individuals, but we would not be able to, local governments would not be able to go above state regulations. We passed out a committee, a 3 strikes you're out, and conversion therapy. So these are things that I think we are working on that I don't think we should be done. We're trying to get rid of bookmobiles in Iowa because apparently people don't like the books that children are getting off of bookmobiles. But to me, the more you read, the better off you are. Lots of different things that we are working on. I don't think we should be, but I am looking forward to your questions.
All right, thank you. And Dennis Guth, please.
Thank you. I've been in the legislature now for 14 years. I am a farmer from north central Iowa, live right near Clenny, and graduated from Iowa State back in 1977, and got married in 1978, and that's my last big connection with Roland. I was actually worked for Woodland Farms out of Story City at that time, and they had turkey barns over in this area, and so I was through Roland a few times at that time. Until then, I hadn't been through Roland much until it was door knocking time, and enjoyed getting to see how much has changed over those, 45 years in between. So I serve,
recording purposes.
Okay. I serve for Senate District 28, which is Hancock County, Wright County, Franklin, Hamilton, and Humboldt counties, as well as the Roland and Story City townships. I serve on the Ag Committee, Health and Human Services, local government, state government, and I am on appropriations as the chair of the Admin and Reg Standing Subcommittee. I enjoy working with ag drainage a lot, so which is, of course, similar to, or has an influence, I guess I'd say, on water quality. I've done a lot of tiling on my own farm and understand that very well, so I enjoy working with that sort of thing. So I don't need to be long-winded, so I'm going to stop there.
All righty, thank you. We can proceed with questions from the floor. If you have a question card, raise your hand for pickup. Otherwise, step up to the mic. That's the one over by that wall. State your name, where you live, and ask your question. And the legislators, please try to keep your answers to under 90 seconds. And we will start with Beth. Wait a minute, what does it say? We will start with Beth. I guess when there's a question, you get started first. Oops. Any questions from the audience? Awesome.
I won't be shy.
Somehow I figured that would be the case.
Well, no, I'm. Hello, my name's Chris Bauer. All of you are very aware of who I am. So my biggest question right now, I think, has to do with Senate Study Bills 3008 and 3009. 3008 deal with the consolidation of 911 under the county's umbrella and taking it away from the local communities and their local community police departments and all of that. And then Senate Study Bill 3009 deals with abolishing pretty much the townships and putting that back under county control. My biggest question is if you support those things and why, because from the local government standpoint as a mayor, I see those to be counterproductive to saving money in the long run, because if you were in a local community that had a police department like we did at one time, the dispatcher would be the city clerk. Well, when you remove the city clerk's role, all you're doing is creating another position within the Joint Communications Center, and you're gonna have to fund it that way. But also, there's this idea that the county would have to have some sort of control over local police departments. And how does that logistics work? It creates a whole slew of problems on that end. But on the township end, I'm also seeing that why do we want the counties to regulate things like fences, things like cemeteries? To me, it's like, why are we trying to fix something that's not necessarily broken? So that's where I would like to leave it. And I'd like your guys' input. So, thank you.
Okay.
So those are both Senate files, and I'm the House member that's here, but I have had a little bit of discussion with a constituent about at least the 911. And I think we're consolidating 911 services makes sense. They have been consolidating 911 services. So I think in Scott County, they have worked together, all the interested parties have worked together and they have consolidated. But there are other places where it just doesn't make sense, and I think Southern Iowa is a huge one where it just didn't make any sense, and he gave me quite a long description, and I wish I had written it down or recorded him, because it doesn't make sense everywhere, and we can't just keep telling local government what to do when it doesn't make sense for all the groups. When I did serve on local government, which has been many years, what I learned when every time they tried to get rid of townships is nobody really understands how much townships do, how much work they accomplish, what they do. And it would put a huge burden on the counties to try and take up that work. So that's what I know about those issues. I have not read those bills because they aren't in the House, as far as I know.
Thank you. Dennis.
Thank you. I haven't been following the bill to consolidate 911. I do know in Hancock County, where I am most familiar, is they have been working at that already for a number of years. Partly because just the logistics there, they have Forest City right on the county line, and that's where they have the jail and a lot of the other EMT services and that sort of thing. If you would like to use some of this water, it's okay. So, I guess I'm not up to speed on where that bill is at right now.
I do believe it is in the local government committee. It
Yes.
passed-
I'm sure it would be.
I do believe that it passed subcommittee, but I do believe that they're coming to committee vote next week. And
Okay.
to me, that's an important issue.
And that'll be one that I appreciate your input, and I have a stack of them that I want to go through. The abolishing townships, I do want to hit a little bit on that one. I brought that up yesterday in a forum there, and one of the county supervisors was there, suggested rather than abolishing townships, how about allowing us to combine townships? I think the big issue right now is lower population in rural areas, and we just can't find people that are willing to serve. So if we can get people to serve, maybe by combining two townships, that might be a better idea than just deciding we should get rid of townships. And of course, they would still exist, but some of the responsibilities would fall to the county board of supervisors. My time's up.
Thank you. Herman?
Well, let me ask you a question first. I think I know the answer, but how much are township trustees paid?
So I believe in Story County, I think they're $13.50 an hour.
$13.50 an hour.
I do believe so.
Okay. About where minimum wage should be if it were, yeah. So township trustees, township government is cheap, okay? And the people who are willing to serve at that level of compensation are doing it, I think, mostly because of their commitment to their area, their community, and to making sure that those services continue to be provided. I understand that with rural population declining, it may be difficult to find people who are willing to serve. So there may be some argument for combining townships. Bipartisan agreement here, just note that. Part of it is an issue of economies of scale. All right, sometimes when you have a fixed cost, you spread that cost over a greater volume, the cost per unit of service goes down. But then again, if you have local interests who want to maintain roads, cemeteries, fence lines, whatever the set of duties, you want people who are going to take that job seriously. So allowing counties some flexibility, I think, would be good. I think that eliminating townships is probably a bad idea. You want to be careful what services are handled by the county as opposed to the township level. Some consolidation and coordination of 9/11. I mean, you're talking about emergency response, so who responds to a fire call? That's going to be a complicated question in some areas. And if the fire is big enough, you want to coordinate a lot of response from other areas. Those are the kinds of questions you need to deal with. I think that county flexibility is probably the best answer. Don't have the state try to have one size fit all.
Okay, thank you. And
I'd like to have one other comment there. Curtis, I'd like to talk with you afterwards about how that would affect funding of fire departments and purchasing fire trucks and that sort of thing.
okay, well, time for another question.
Don't be shy.
Hi, my name is Martha Berkman, and I'm from Ames, Iowa. And a comment, I wear a mask. Okay. Hi, I'm Marta Berkman, I'm from Ames, Iowa, and I just want to comment, I wear a mask to protect my son. He was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic cancer, still is immunocompromised. He's healthy now, which is a miracle because he keeps beating the odds. He was supposed to have, the doctors told him he had less than a 2% chance of getting this type of cancer. They've also told him that he shouldn't be alive now for a variety of reasons. The cancer, the radiation, losing too much weight because he couldn't keep food down. He's doing very well now. But I'm not here to talk about cancer, which should be surprising because I know you're trying to deal with that. I'm here to talk about eminent domain, because one of his dreams is to farm our family's century farm. He would be the 4th generation. And right now, a private company wants to take that farmland and use an easement to put a carbon pipeline on it. He has said that if that pipeline goes through our land, he will not farm it. He's an engineer. He knows the dangers of a carbon pipeline. And so my question to you, 2 parts, is what can you continue to do to stop eminent domain? Because I've got to look at my notes for the number, but Senate File 2067 gives more power to a carbon pipeline company, takes power away from the landowners who, farming is a business, and they're trying to take my business away for a very large company. At the last forum, there was a comment made also that, Summit Carbon Pipeline has stepped up and offered more incentives to landowners and to counties. And I hadn't thought about that until you spoke. One of the things they said is, well, we'll give every county where the pipeline goes $50,000 to spend on improvements to EMS services. Right now, if there's a rupture in a carbon pipeline, it will have a kill zone of about 1.4 miles, which means every living thing in that area would die from CO2 because it absorbs oxygen. You can't drive a gas-powered vehicle into that kill zone because it's going to kill the vehicle. And so you'd have $50,000 as a city or a county to buy, what, 1 ambulance, 1 fire truck? No. You can't do that for $50,000.
Our fire truck costs $450,000.
Okay, there you go. So, and they also said, well, they're giving landowners incentives every year. My yearly income, if Summit carried through on this, and they've proven themselves to be liars, but my yearly income would be $523 if they put a pipeline on my land. Now, that's less than 2 acres of income on my land. So, coming back, how do you hold these companies accountable? How do you stop the use of eminent domain to transfer landowners' economic well-being to a large company?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll start with Dennis.
Thank you. I appreciate your concerns. One of Summit's pipelines would go 1.25 miles away from my farm, was originally to go through a farm that I rent, but they did move it across the road, so it's not quite as close. But that does put me within the 1.4 miles. So I am concerned about that. I am also a farmer that a couple years ago I produced 90,000 bushels of corn, so boy, I'd love to see the price of corn go up. And I'm also an investor in an ethanol plant. But I don't believe any of those things would trump our Constitution. Constitution, both federally and state-wise, would say that we should not use eminent domain unless we have a public use for the product that's going through that pipeline. I don't see a public use for this product. I am strongly opposed to using eminent domain. And of the 3 of us up here, I'm the one who's in the hot seat right now, trying to challenge Senate leadership to do something about this. Not a comfortable place, but I'm going to keep fighting for people like you. Thank you.
Thank you. Herman?
The cancer victim is your husband or son?
My son.
Your son. Wow. How old?
He was 34 when he was diagnosed.
Wow. I'm so sorry for you. That's tough.
He's writing now.
Well, that's good. We have some good treatment facilities and personnel in Ames, and they're working with a number of people I know who have been affected by that, so I wish them the best. On eminent domain, at the risk of having two elements of bipartisan agreement, I agree with Senator Guth. It should not be used for the carbon pipeline. Use eminent domain for things like roads, telephone lines, sewer lines, things that the whole community benefits from and that, you know, have to get from point A to point B, that kind of thing. I've been a long time supporter of ethanol, and I'm not opposed to building a pipeline, but I think there are a number of hurdles that would have to be cleared before that could be okay. Number one is, how do you get the land, and you don't use eminent domain? I mean, what's wrong with using the marketplace, right? All of my conservative friends, well, the Republican Party is split on this, so, but I'm an economist. I've studied markets for a long time. You ought to use markets. Second thing is, you have to have good construction standards so that when you build that pipeline, it's not going to leak or collapse when you run a tractor over it. Third thing is, you have to have setbacks so that if you have a leak, you have a zone there where people you know, can exit. Other things along the way, but the other thing at the end, literally at the end of the line, is what are you going to use that CO2 for? If you're going to get it up to North Dakota and pump it in the ground to facilitate fracking, to bring up more fossil fuel, then you're violating the whole environmental premise of the whole project. So there are quite a few hurdles that have to be cleared. I have friends in the labor movement who, construction area, who want the jobs, and I appreciate that, but we got to do this in the right way if we're going to do it at all. I would be interested in finding other local repositories for storing the CO2 underground and just isolating it there, not trying to use it to generate more fossil fuel.
Thank you. Beth?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for sharing the story about your son. One of the scariest things about the rising rates of cancer are how it's hitting younger Iowans and people that we never thought it would hit. My children are 28 and 32, and hearing that your son is 34 just stuns me. So thank you for sharing that. I hope he has the opportunity to farm your land. I have repeatedly voted against using eminent domain for private gain going back, I think, 20 years. There was a bill on this 20 years ago. I have voted over at least the last 3. Some people say we've been doing this for 5 years. I only really remember it for 3 years in the Iowa House. For one bill, I was the only Democrat to vote for the bill as it came out of judiciary, because I am a strong supporter of not using eminent domain for private gain. Last year, as we all know, the governor vetoed the bill that did, as a very long last day of session, made it through. And the others have all died in the Senate, including one that we voted for this year. I mean, there are weeks to go, and perhaps Senator Guth can use his power with 11 others to make sure that they get a vote on that. But I'm concerned about what happens to it after the vote through the Senate, because it has to get the governor to sign it. So, thank you.
All right, and please proceed with your question.
Hi, my name is Michael Searing from Ames. Since the voucher program began, school voucher program began, public school funding has been throttled down every year from 3% down to just 1.75% just a few days ago, which is basically a cut with 3% inflation. I know Herman had handed out something that goes back a little further for public school funding cuts. But the governor's budget plans to spend nearly $350 million on public school vouchers next year, a cost that has almost tripled in the 3 years since its inception. In the Roland Story School District, there are 0 private schools. For a high school in this community to use a voucher, they would have to commute 45 minutes to Des Moines. That's not a school choice for this community. Roland Story tax dollars are being drained to fund private schools that these students cannot reasonably attend. What justifies capping public school growth while giving private schools a blank check? And what are you doing to prevent consolidation of rural public schools?
Two-part. Herman.
Well, yes, I have studied this in some detail, and I passed out a handout. You didn't get one, but I have one for you. If you, oh, okay. Well, look, if you look at the first chart here, you're looking at the gap between the state cost per pupil as it actually is. That's the lower line, the blue line, and the red is the state cost per pupil. If we had kept up, if we had simply increased it according to inflation. You can see that the gap is quite large here. State cost per pupil and a few other things that are governed by that percentage increase. It's now more than $1,000 per student per year. Okay? You go down 2 more charts, you take a look at the total expenditure gap. When you add up the per pupil amount times the number of pupils, and you can see that we are $500 million a year short of keeping up with inflation as compared to when Terry Branstad left the governorship. So that's a tremendous gap. We could fill a lot of that gap, but we're spending $300 million on vouchers this year. And by the way, running $1.25 billion deficit. So the state cutting the taxes to such an enormous degree that put us in deficit situation. At the same time, they are initiating the voucher program that spends $300 million a year. It's not only terrible educational policy, it's absolutely irresponsible fiscal policy. I think we need to end the voucher program. There are a lot of counties that aren't served at all by that. I think it was 43 counties when we counted. There are other ways to use that money that benefits everybody in every county, every school district. I firmly believe that public dollars belong supporting the public schools. I'm a public school kid all the way through high school. I got a great education, and that's been the foundation for everything I've accomplished ever since.
Thank you. Beth?
Thank you. Public dollars should go to public schools. Strong supporter of that. I have never supported the vouchers, and I would not. Watching the schools with their budgets right now, it's just terrifying to see what they're cutting. I mean, Des Moines Public Schools, Cedar Rapids, Boone is cutting, significant part of their arts, their orchestra program. Their orchestra instructor came to the Capitol a couple of weeks ago and introduced herself. She was supporting the arts. And I said, oh, I love orchestra. And she said, yeah, my program just got cut. And I remember that. All of my daughter's friends that she keeps in contact with, she's my 32-year-old, were from orchestra. Those are the people she stays in contact with. They can't all be athletes. We have to have other programs in our schools to enrich our students. And we are cutting those. And I just can't even imagine being a parent today and looking to send my child to school, because you're right, there aren't any in Ames that I would send my child to, any private schools in Ames. So I also would have to go to Des Moines to find a private school. So the fact that we are damaging our public schools and then forcing parents to go look for private schools that are non-existent is a crime. And there are no caps on income. If you don't know, there are no caps on income, so anybody qualifies for that money. Thank you for the question.
Okay. Dennis?
Yes, thank you. An interesting point that I just heard this last week, and I haven't been able to verify yet, is that the majority of the ESA money is going to people who are choosing a different public school rather than going to a private school. I don't know if that's...
That's not legal.
That's not legal? Okay, well, I was told that, so I haven't followed up on finding that out yet. But as far as we're really not changing the amount of money that's being spent on education. We're just saying a parent has the opportunity to decide where their child is going to go, and that money would follow the child. It's the same amount of money that goes to a private school that would have gone to a public school. All the public school has to do is be good enough that they're going to keep all their students. That's exactly what, was it Iowa City, I believe? I can't remember which one of the public schools said, okay, bring it on. We're going to try and be so good that nobody will want to go to a private school. And that's exactly what the point of the bill, or the whole idea was, is to make everybody compete. Milton Friedman has spoke many times about all kinds of topics where competition is what really drives improvement, and I think it's time we have some competition in schools.
Thank you. Next, okay.
I have a quick follow-up to what the senator
Wow.
said.
Okay.
Oh,
So you have a question, Carolyn?
yes, I do.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, introduce yourself, where you're from, please.
I'm Carolyn Klaus, I'm from Ames, Iowa, and this public education versus private, if you are going to continue to support the private, why don't you have accountability for their money like you do the public dollars that are going to the private? So I would like to see accountability. I don't want them to be able to take their administration to Hawaii without accountability. You're hearing of this stuff happening. So why can't our auditor look into these private schools? So I would just like your comments on accountability in private education.
Thank you. And we'll start with Beth.
Oh, I'm kind of busy. I would say, I agree with you 100% that we need audits, we need accountability. If they have to happen, they shouldn't be happening. But with them happening, we need accountability, we need audits. We need to hold the teachers accountable to the same standards that we hold our public school teachers for. So all those standardized tests, even though I'm not a big, huge fan of standardized tests, those kids should be taking those, and they should be publishing the results just like they do for our public schools. I mean, we should have the same standards. If it's public money going into the school, they need to have the same standards that public schools have. And I'm back to my other job.
Thank you. And
Pet project, right?
Dennis, please.
He desperately needs his ears cleaned. You want to do that, Beth?
Thank you. My own cat.
Dennis, please.
Okay. Thank you. I got a little distracted.
Accountability.
Accountability, yes.
Auditing.
Auditing. A lot of the reason that a parent is going to choose to take their child out of the public school is because they haven't found the public school to be accountable to their needs, to their particular desires. That parent is going to do all that they can to make sure that a private school is going to be accountable to the needs of their child. If they are not, they're going to bring that kid back to the public school. It is much easier to go to a public school than it is to go to a private school. Transportation and school lunches and all those things are much simpler there. It takes a sacrifice to go to a public school, and they are going to do everything they can to make sure that they keep those private school board, or whatever you want to call it, accountable. So I think that what we really want to do is allow more opportunities for parents to keep local schools accountable, and if this helps them keep public schools more accountable, I would appreciate that too.
Okay, thank you. Herman?
Okay, let me straighten out a few things. When a person or a family applies for a voucher, their application gets evaluated. There used to be, first couple of years, some income caps. There are no more income caps, so basically any Iowa family wants a voucher, they apply for it. But before they are awarded the voucher, their kid has to be accepted in a private school. So vouchers are not used in any public school. They're just not. all right? And at least there's that much accountability. The first dollars out of that account go to pay the tuition at the private school. The problem with accountability starts, what is the private school using those dollars for? And the state has no ability to ask how those dollars are being used. That's primarily what Rob Sand has been talking about, the state auditor who also is running for governor. So now, as far as why people go to private school and how many are affected here, the private school enrollment before the voucher program started was about 33, it was pretty steady, about 33,000 students a year. They're now up to 41,000. So the 33,000 were going anyway. What that tells you is that 80% of the people who are getting the vouchers were already had enough money to send their kids to private school, and in fact were doing that. They were doing that primarily, and if you look at the promotional materials of the private schools, virtually all our private schools are religious, okay? One religion or another. The promotional materials themselves say, isn't it great that every element of our curriculum is infused with our religious values? That's what they're about. That's what they're about, is promoting religion. And if parents want that kind of education for their kids, and if they can pay for it, that's fine with me. That's fine with me. But public schools can't promote religion, all right? That's Constitution. So we've got to have the public dollars going to the public schools that obey the Constitution. If you want to take your kid and put them in a school that promotes religion, promotes your religion, that's fine, but you got to pay your own way. All right? 80% of the kids who are getting vouchers today were already going to private school. Parents could already pay. The number, the 41,000 who are getting vouchers, so that's about 8% of the school population. All right, only about the 1.6 at the edge were people who apparently seem to need the vouchers in order to go to private school. But like I showed you, the public schools are $500 million short of just even keeping up with inflation. We're not talking about any increase in resources. We're just talking about staying steady, and we're not.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Cynthia Passion of Ames and Jewel. I want to address what Senator Guth said about competition. I only got through 2 semesters of economics at Iowa State University, and I was not an A student. But I do remember that there are systems in place where competition works, okay? I'm going to compete with you for whatever. I'm going to compete with you in basketball, say. Or I'm going to compete with you in getting first chair clarinet and band. Okay? And I'm going to beat you.
Or in raising more bushels of corn per acre.
Right. There is competition. Sure. But there are systems like healthcare, like public education, where competition is not the same as playing basketball one-on-one, because there are structures in place that keep competition out of the equation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I can't compete if I'm principal or superintendent at Belmont Clemmy. How do I compete with a school that offers, every kid gets a free computer, every teacher gets a week in Hawaii, I can't compete with that. It's not the same thing.
Okay, so did you have a question, or?
No, I just wanted to correct the record that competition works in certain structures, right? Healthcare and education, public education, no, it don't work.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, looks like we have another question, and we'll, Dennis, you'll start this time with your answers.
My name is Dan Clark. I moved to Ames from Muscatine about a year ago. My daughter is assistant director at Ryman Gardens and has been for a very long time, so we've come to be close to grandchildren and be retired people. But One of my Muscatine connections that I keep up is serving on the board of the Alexander Clark Foundation. Alexander Clark, I hope Iowans know the name. Alexander Clark was a pioneer for equal rights in the 19th century, and his house is on the National Register, and our foundation is about preserving the equal rights legacy in Iowa. 1868, the voters of Iowa ratified an amendment to the 1857 Constitution eliminating the word white from our foundational document. The most immediate effect was that black men in Iowa, many of whom, there weren't many, but many of whom had served in Iowa's only black regiment in the Civil War. And there was a movement led by black and white Civil War veterans, mainly, of both parties, that got that job done, passed by 2 sessions of the General Assembly and then ratified by the people. Earlier that year, the Iowa Supreme Court ruled in a case called Clark versus Muscatine Schools. A leader,
I thought that was the Clark.
so a leader, Alexander Clark was a leader in all of these movements going back to the 1850s. He was a black man who lived in Iowa for almost 50 years of his life. He became a Republican, new Republican Party, and at the end of his life, President Benjamin Harrison appointed him as the U.S. Minister to Liberia, where he died in 1891. State Department brought his body back to Muscatine for burial. Well, the point is, conveniently, his birthday was in February, so we can celebrate Black History Month and Alexander Clark's birthday. 2018 was the 150th anniversary of the Clark ruling by the Iowa Supreme Court that integrated public education in Iowa and has been used as a precedent for various other equal rights, civil rights measures since. And that year, the Muscatine City Council voted unanimously to create Clark's birthday, February 25, as Alexander Clark Day in Muscatine. There are proclamations of that every year. And there have been other ones. Governor Bob Ray one time appointed a Alexander Clark Day for Iowa, and it's happened over the years. We would like to have a resolution of the Iowa General Assembly this year. And I don't know exactly how these things are done, but I have drafted some language for I know one time in the past we had a joint resolution, so it was both houses, both parties. We hope that it's more than sort of decorative, performative, that it's a really sincere expression of Iowans, that we claim this heritage, and we want the future generations to know about it. And this is a statement of who we are. So I brought some language that I'll share with you for, it's written as a House concurrent resolution because we thought maybe that's the way it starts. February 25, Alexander Clark's 200th birthday. And by the way, his stump speech, and he was known as the colored orator of the West. He traveled all over the country. Frederick Douglass was the great colored orator, so Clark was the colored orator of the West. And he loved to quote the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal, all people are created equal. And so in the 250th year of the Declaration of Independence, it seems fitting that Clark's 200th birthday comes along.
200th birthday this year.
Yes.
So we got to get our act together in the next week.
Okay, and I'm not sure if this is actually a question or if you had any comments about it, Dennis.
Well, I just want to say thank you because I was not very much aware of Alexander Clark. I'm not a history buff. I'm starting to be a much more interested in our founding fathers' history, and that would include some of Iowa's history as well. So I'd be very interested. I need to follow up on this.
Mark Lofgren in the Senate has done this kind of thing before.
Yes.
Bobby Kaufman, his father, are big on this story, so you got some Republicans there. I talked to Ross Wilburn. Integrating public education, judiciary, you guys can figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. I will look into it this week.
Right. And it's just, I like to do the background work to make sure that it says in Proverbs that everybody sounds right until someone else comes to challenge them. And I got stuck on that a few times when I was a freshman. saying, sure, I'd be glad to support that. And then I heard the other side and I go, oh, well, maybe not so much. And so I want to do my due diligence and do a little background on this. Thank you so much for doing that.
Herman?
86 years before Brown versus Board, Iowa got it right. It was in the 1890s, in 96 or 98. The U.S. Supreme Court got it wrong, said that separate but equal is constitutional.
1896.
1896, thank you. Right, Plessy decision. Brown versus Topeka Board went to the Supreme Court and was decided in 1954 when I was 4 years old. That finally set the tone nationwide. It took some years, though, before desegregated schools actually were implemented in the South. There was continuing resistance for quite a number of years. But Iowa set the mark in 1868. We have a proud history on the issue, on many issues of fair treatment. It was actually in 1839, somebody's going to correct me, in the matter of Ralph. This was before Iowa even became a state, all right? Yeah, it was the first decision of the territorial Supreme Court. There was a black man who had been enslaved in Missouri. His owner, I hate the word, said, okay, you can go to Iowa and try to earn enough to buy your freedom. Well, he tried to do that, but didn't earn enough, so the owner sent a couple of thugs to pick him up and bring him back to Missouri. Well, Ralph challenged that in court, and the Iowa Supreme Court said, nope, if you're in Iowa, you're a free man. You don't have to be, you can't be dragged back into slavery. You mentioned Ross Wilburn. I talked to him this morning. He was sorry he couldn't be here. He has an interesting personal history. I can't remember how many greats there are, but great-great-grandfather was enslaved in Missouri, left the employ, escaped, crossed the river to Illinois and joined one of the, in the term of the day, colored regiments there and fought for the Union in the Civil War. We have other proud instances. We were the first state to admit women to the bar. That was in the 1800s. So it was particularly shocking and troubling last year when the Iowa legislature decided to take protection for gender identity out of the Iowa Civil Rights Code. It had been put there in 2007, one of the proudest votes that I ever cast. I know Beth has a story on that as well. The legislature and the governor legalized discrimination, legalized doing to transgender people what George Wallace and Strom Thurmond and Lester Maddox and David Duke had wanted to do to black people for all that time, denying them basic rights of housing and education and employment and medical care and all the way down the line, a seat at a lunch counter. All of those rights were taken away. Now, the flimsy issue that they use to talk about that is transgender women competing in women's sports. You're going to take away the whole complex of, I understand, you're going to take away the whole complex of individual rights over the flimsy excuse of the flimsy question of who gets to play on the volleyball team. Tuesday night, Ames put that protection back into local code, but the legislature's threatening now to even take away local government's ability to do that within their own jurisdiction. I'm sorry for going on too long. This is this is as important an issue to me as anything I can think of.
Okay, thank you. Beth?
Thank you. We have a long and great history up until last year of protecting civil rights. I have read some of your stuff on Bleeding Heartland about Alexander Clark, and I always enjoyed that. I've known Mr. Clark through his daughter because I worked at Ryman Gardens, so I've been following a lot of the stuff that you have done. In the House, we celebrate Black History Month by honoring a famous African-American from Iowa every day on the House floor, so there's always somebody. Alexander Clark has been honored this year, as a matter of fact. I can't remember who did it, but one representative gets up and speaks every month. We also, I think, have not mentioned Edna Griffin, who came before Rosa Parks. We have been leaders in civil rights, integrated schools, a chance at eating at a public accommodations. And last year, we did make a horrible mistake, and we led the country in being the first to remove civil rights from our state civil rights code, which has been very sad. I hope we can do better. So thank you very much for bringing it to my attention. We did honor him once on the floor, but I have no problems honoring him a couple of times, so I will bring this to the attention of Mr. Kaufman.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the audience? I know there's something on your minds.
Here we go again.
Sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
All right.
Add to my workload.
So,
I knew you'd come through, Curtis.
yeah, you may not like me, Senator Gates. So, okay. Senator Cornbach touched on it before. We're looking at, originally it was only supposed to be roughly $940 to $950 million deficit. And with everything that has come through on the revenues that we've seen through the last 2 quarters of last year in 2025, we've seen that the deficit has grown even beyond what the expectations were by LSA and DOM. So looking at it now, I think $1.25 billion deficit is actually closer, but I think it's going to be closer to 1.5 to 1.6. And if that deficit is that large, my question is are you guys willing to repeal the 3.8% flat tax and possibly go to a 2 to 3 bracket tax code to be able to level out this economy? Because here in Iowa, with the really, really wealthy getting a huge tax break going, 9% down to 3.8, that enabled the really wealthy of the economy to spend tax dollars that went back to them outside of Iowa, because they put it on investments and they spent it outside. The everyday earner, the W-2 earner that we have, they spend their money paycheck to paycheck. That's what they're living on. And when they spend their money here and they get a tax break and they spend their money here, it stays here. But when you give a tax break to the other end, it doesn't stay here. So I'm curious your thoughts and your comments on that part of the budget and where you guys would land with that. So, thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Herman.
Well, as I indicated earlier, I think that the governing party in the state is engaged in completely fiscally irresponsible policies. The income tax, let's start by agreeing, nobody likes paying taxes, okay? And, but you know, taxes, the usual phrase, taxes are the price we pay for civilization. We depend on police and fire and emergency medical and snow removal in every community in Iowa. Those aren't for free. We depend on public education for 90% of our kids. We depend on our public universities to educate better than half of the college students in the state. None of those services come for free. So we have to find a way to pay for them. The tax cut that was passed in 2022 began by slashing the top rates. So it was the wealthiest people who were first in line to get any benefit at all. That was gradually raised, lowered on down, so finally even people toward the bottom got some sort of a rate cut. There was also an increase in the standard deduction, so everybody benefited from that. But where we're left right now, revenues have fallen $1 billion a year. And over the same period, we had launched the voucher program that cost an additional $300 million a year. I mean, when your revenue is going down, but you're committing to more money to more programs, that's utterly insane. That's as irresponsible as you could get. So we have to go back to a tax system that is fair for everybody. I will quit real quick, but there are two items that are the most dangerous things on the agenda this year. There are two constitutional amendments that are hanging fire. If they're passed through the legislature this year, then they go to the voters this fall. One would lock in constitutionally the single rate, and the other would require a 2/3 majority to raise that rate. If those things pass, Iowa will be locked into a low education, low service economy for the foreseeable future. And I'm not sure that I can make an argument with any family with young kids that they should stay in this state, because we won't be able to afford their kids' education.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Beth, please.
Thank you. I would love to see a progressive income tax in the state that would tax everybody fairly. Right now, what we have is a higher burden on lower incomes and a lower burden on higher incomes, and that's just simply wrong. And I want you to think about what the information that you gave us. So there will be, you're estimating $1.6 billion deficit in our revenues. So, and that is with, I'm guessing, 1.75% going to schools, which is starving the schools. We are in a crisis. We have that money, we do, but it can only last so long. I mean, it's not going to keep up. Interestingly, when that tax cut went into effect, my taxes went up. I kind of laughed because I'm like, and when I spoke to the person who prepares my taxes, she says, you wouldn't believe how many people's taxes went up with both the federal and the state tax cuts. It doesn't impact everybody equally, and it benefits higher incomes versus lower incomes. The impact is on lower income people. They are paying higher rates. So yes, we need to change it. I don't think it's going to be changed under the current leadership.
Thank you. Dennis.
Thank you. One point I would like to contend with Senator Cornbach on the cost of education being reduced, or the amount that we spend on education has remained the same, even with the educational savings account. It's just that some of that money is going to a different place. It's still the same amount per student, $8,133, I believe, if I remember right, that goes with each student. And it's just that some of those students have chosen to be involved in a different educational system, so we're still spending the same amount. That really hasn't affected our state budget. The other things, I have been very hesitant about our tax cuts as they came through, but I think it was the right thing when we had accumulated a considerable taxpayer relief fund to do that, and we have close to 5 years worth of money reserved that we should be able to go through. I don't know if what the economy is going to do. I am not the psychic that can tell you what the economy is going to do over the next 4 or 5 years. I think a big reason that our leadership in the Senate wants to see these pipelines come through is because they can tax that carbon and eliminate some more of our taxes if they can do that. So I think that's a false pursuit to try and replace our taxes with something, get something in order to replace our taxes. I guess that's, my time's up. I'll stop there.
All righty. And again, we give preference to questions from the audience over closing remarks. So let's keep in mind, we've got just a few minutes left. All righty.
I just have one more question, sorry. So this is back to some more public education.
And your name and-
Oh, sorry, Michael Searing from Ames. So this is on higher education. There's a higher education bill that was introduced, several bills, I guess. And they covered several parts of higher education. They introduced post-tenure review that could be triggered at any time with a new ombudsman position. They removed a student and faculty vote on presidential searches, and they also, excuse me, that is kind of a quick note here. And then, excuse me, they pushed, they also started to tax the endowment for the university. And I believe that was more about the trying to cover up some of the shortfalls in the budget. But I was just curious what your guys' stance were on some of those bills that were introduced. I think it was just maybe a week and a half ago.
And you're talking about higher education?
Yes, higher
Okay.
University, yes.
Okay. And Beth, you'll start first?
So 20 bills have been passed out of the Higher Education Committee this year, all of them to lower the standards, in my opinion, of what higher education, to take control over. I have some good news. Next week is our final week, and there is not a scheduled Higher Education Committee meeting that week. So they are done damaging higher education for the year. I don't know how many of those 20 bills will pass through all chambers and make it to the governor's desk, but there are so many. One that I just heard about today was not to allow any Chinese students to come in with a visa. It's just absolutely absurd what they are doing. I just got a text from a constituent today who informed me of that bill. It's absurd what we are doing to higher education. We need student input on what we're doing. We need faculty input on hiring of a president. We need to trust that there are people who understand higher education more than the 150 House members and Senate members, and as much as we do for K through 12. And in my opinion, we are just tanking our systems. So thank you for the question. I don't have any really good answers for you. Some good news. Yes, some good news.
Dennis.
These are all bills that I haven't seen, don't know anything about, so I really don't feel like I'm qualified to comment on them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That was
real
less than
quick.
90 seconds, by the way.
Real quick, the bill on the presidential search, there was this companion bill in the Senate. We were told it's the subcommittee on the Senate bill this year that the House has amended its proposal. They have put a student representative and faculty representative on the search, back on the search committee. I have not seen the House bill, so I can't verify that, but at least to that extent, it's good news. Taxing the university foundation or the endowment would be the stupidest blanking thing that I can think of. It would totally destroy the incentive, or largely destroy the incentive of donors to give money to the universities. So how are you going to make up for that? Dumb, 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 dumb. The income generated by the endowments helps to pay scholarships. It helps to make it possible for kids to come to the university. And so why would you want to limit that? Let me go back to what we're spending on the public schools. This is the third graph in the handout that I passed around. The blue line, which you can see is going up, is the actual spending. So we have actually been spending more dollars on public education. The problem is that it hasn't kept up with inflation. Okay? If your family, you know, if you get a $2,000 raise, that sounds great, but you go home and you look at your family bills and your family bills have gone up $5,000, you're falling behind. How do you balance your family budget? You got to cut $3,000. Well, school districts have been faced with exactly the same problem, except they have a few more zeros off the end of the numbers that they're working with. So public education spending has gone up, but not enough to keep up with inflation, and that has forced all kinds of different cuts.
Okay, thank you. Another question? This is probably our last one.
In some ways, this is more of a clarification.
Name.
Marta Berkran, Ames, Iowa.
Thank you.
And this is a clarification and putting some context around a comment that was made about taxation by Senator Guth. Excuse me. You mentioned Senator Klimish's bill that would tax the CO2 in a pipeline. Everyone that I have talked to believes that that is an effort by Senator Klimish to justify that putting CO2 in a pipeline is a public use, and it's not a public use. And to maybe add something to that, he has put in there that the taxation rate is greater if it's not used for fracking. And the CO2 would be taxed at a lower rate if the CO2 was going to be used for fracking, which Summit Pipeline now admits is their goal. Originally, they claimed it was only for climate purposes. And as we know, the EPA just this week said CO2 is no longer a danger. So I just want to add some context because it's a false tax. And he's just putting it in there, in my opinion, and everyone I've talked to, is so that he can say it's for public use. Thank you.
Okay, so Dennis, do you have any comments on that? We'll finish off with that.
I just would not deny anything you had to say.
Okay, Herman?
Well, I had not heard about the differential tax. A lower tax if it's used for fracking. If you use the CO2 for fracking, you destroy the environmental argument entirely. You're pumping more petroleum out of the ground, and that's generating more CO2 pollution. The benefit of ethanol is that the CO2 that is generated by burning ethanol is drawn out of the atmosphere into the corn plants instead of being dug out of the ground. So that's fascinating. The irony of the whole thing is that you have conservatives, alleged conservatives like Bruce Rastetter, who are behind this CO2 thing. There's no market out there for CO2. What they're doing is milking a government program. And with the developments this week saying, well, we don't have a global warming problem, how long is it going to be before the Congress eliminates the program that creates the subsidy for sequestering CO2 and blows the whole deal? Then what do we have? We have a pipeline that's dug up a lot of people's ground that is sitting there empty. I mean, the insanity of this whole thing is just mind-boggling.
Thank you. Beth?
Thank you for the clarification, and I am not keeping up with the bills that are in the Senate on this, but I appreciate the clarification and will make note of it. Thank you.
Would you like the Senate number, the Senate file number? 2069.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we have one more question.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Mario Perales. Currently, I am a Democratic candidate running for governor of Iowa. I have a question, and I would like to hear from every one of you. What law, what bill would you pass to improve the lives of Iowans across the state or in your district? If I can hear from every single one of you, I would appreciate that.
Thank you. And we'll start with Dennis.
Well, I think the one that I would like to do the most has already been passed, and that is establishing educational savings accounts for our students.
Okay, Herman?
Well, the bipartisan agreement has ended now. I filed 2 bills this year. Both provide alternative uses for the money going into vouchers. One bill, we could put the income cap back on at 400% of poverty. And by the way, 400% of poverty is not poverty. It's well up in the 6 figures of income. If we put that cap back on, which just came off this year, that would free up on the order of $90 to $100 million, and we could use that to expand our preschool program to full day. All right, right now it's a minimum of 10 hours a week. We could go all the way to full day preschool with that money and subsidize the cost for the local school districts to provide that. The other bill that I filed would eliminate the voucher program entirely and use that money instead for property tax relief. That's $325 million of property tax relief. Unlike some of the bills that have been proposed that benefits every property owner in the state, it benefits farmers, small businesses, it benefits seniors, low-income seniors who are trying to hang on to their home, it benefits young couples who are trying to get into their first home. It's not just the mortgage, remember, you got to pay the property tax. So that is something that you could do with a voucher program to benefit everybody, not the 8% of the kids who go to private school, and it would benefit the 43 counties that don't have a private school at all, like Roland.
And the property tax relief, sir, that would apply to how many Iowans?
Everybody who owns taxable property.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Beth?
I went through my wish list, and I've come up with my number one that I think would have the biggest impact on all Iowans, and that would be to work for affordable, accessible, and quality health care for absolutely every single Iowan, including women in reproductive health care. So it would take a lot of steps, but I know so many young people who are struggling. They turn 26, and they have nowhere to get health care, or it's too expensive. Right now, anybody who is on the ACA in Iowa is paying over $100 more per month than they were paying on average than they were paying last year. So we need to do something to make sure everybody is insured, and that makes a huge impact on an individual's life.
And Beth, do you think we will be able to go ahead and afford the funding for that, or will we get the revenue to do something like that?
Well, there are some proposals out there, and I would be very happy to talk to you privately, but it's an absolute must because it's costing us money. It's costing everybody money.
I have a few ideas on my own.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's time for the conclusion of the forum. Before dismissing everyone, the League has a few announcements. If you are not yet registered to vote, you may do so at the table in the back. For those who may be interested in the work of the Story County League, there is information at the table in the back as well, and we have a number of League members here to answer questions. We have our tags on. On Thursday, February 19th, this coming Thursday at 7 o'clock at Ames Public Library is the monthly Learn with the League presentation. This month's topic is public education. The League's lobby day at the state capitol is Thursday, February 26th. Leave your name and contact information at the back table if you wish to attend. Thank you to our legislators for spending their Saturday morning with us. We really appreciate it. Let's give them a round of applause. And thank you to Roland Library Director Laura, and correct me, Urbanek, Urbanic, for being so welcoming and hosting this event. And thank you also to all of you for actively participating in your democracy. This concludes the February 14th, 2026 Legislative Forum. Have a good weekend.
And thank you to the moderator.